They didn't value you when you were there. Now imagine the day they realize you're gone for real. No more messages, no more effort, no more emotional availability, just silence. That's when something strange happens. The same people who ignored you start thinking about you. The same people who took you for granted start feeling your absence. The same people who had options suddenly realize they lost the best one. And here's the truth nobody tells you. People rarely value what's always available. They value what they can lose. So the real power is not begging to be valued. It's becoming someone whose absence creates regret. But here's what most people don't realize. You don't make people regret losing you by chasing them. You do it by becoming someone they can't easily replace. That shift changes everything. You've felt this before, that moment when you gave everything to someone who barely gave anything back. That moment when you stayed loyal to people who treated you like an option. That moment when you lowered your standards just to keep someone in your life. And deep down, you knew you were being undervalued. You knew you were overgiving. You knew you were staying where you weren't respected. But you stayed anyway, because you thought effort creates loyalty. You thought patience creates appreciation. You thought if you showed enough care, they would eventually value you. But here's the harsh truth. People don't respect what they didn't earn, and they don't value what they never feared losing. That's where everything changes. The moment you stop trying to be valued and start becoming someone impossible to ignore. Not through games, through attitude. Because attitude determines how people treat you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Most people misunderstand this. They try to control people's opinions, their loyalty, their behavior. That's weakness. Real power is controlling your presence, your reactions, your availability. And when you master that, people who didn't value you start feeling something new. Regret, not because you forced it, because you became someone they can't easily replace. So let's talk about the first attitude that changes how people see you forever. Attitude 1. Emotional detachment. The moment you stop reacting emotionally, people lose control over you. Think about it. When someone ignores you and you react instantly, they feel powerful. When someone disrespects you and you argue back, they feel in control. When someone pulls away and you chase, they feel important. Your reactions give them power. But here's what most people don't realize. The moment you become calm and detached, the power shifts. You stop reacting, you stop chasing, you stop explaining, and suddenly they start thinking, why aren't they reacting anymore? Why do they seem so calm? Did I lose control over them? That's when curiosity begins, and curiosity leads to attention. Epictetus taught that no one can control you unless you allow them to control your emotions. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you control how much you show. And controlled emotions create mystery. Mystery creates value. Because what people can't read easily, they respect. This is where everything changes, when your silence becomes stronger than your reactions. Instead of arguing, you observe. Instead of chasing, you focus. Instead of explaining, you improve. And people notice, not immediately, but slowly. They notice your calm, your discipline, your emotional control. And suddenly, the same person who ignored you starts wondering about you. That's the power of detachment. Now let's talk about the second attitude. Attitude 2. Stop being always available. Availability kills value. Not because you're not important, because you're too accessible. When you're always there, people assume you'll always be there. When you reply instantly, they stop valuing your time. When you adjust your schedule for everyone, they stop respecting your priorities, and slowly you become taken for granted, not intentionally, naturally, because human nature values what feels limited. But here's what most people don't realize. When you stop being constantly available, people start noticing your absence. You don't reply instantly. You don't always show up. You don't always say yes. And suddenly, your time feels valuable because it's not guaranteed anymore. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Most people waste their time trying to be available for everyone. Powerful people protect their time. They don't ignore others. They prioritize themselves, and that shift creates respect. When people see you value your time, they start valuing it too. This is where everything changes. You stop trying to be accessible. You start becoming selective. Selective with your time, selective with your energy, selective with your presence. And suddenly, people who ignored you start trying to reach you, because what's less available feels more valuable. Let's move to the third attitude. Attitude 3. Silent self-improvement. Nothing creates regret faster than visible growth. Not loud growth, silent growth. When you improve quietly, people notice loudly. You focus on your body, your discipline, your mindset, your goals, without announcing anything. And then one day, they see you differently, stronger, calmer, more confident, more focused. That transformation hits them, because they remember how they treated you before. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to focus on self-mastery, not others' opinions, because self-improvement is silent revenge. You don't need to prove anything. You just become better. And when you become better, people who didn't value you start questioning their decisions. They start thinking, did I underestimate them? Did I lose someone valuable? Why do they seem so different now? This is where everything changes. You stop trying to impress people. You start impressing yourself. And ironically, that's what impresses everyone else. But here's what most people don't realize. Growth creates distance. Not everyone will grow with you. Some will watch from a distance. Some will regret. Some will admire silently. Some will try to return. Because when someone sees you evolve without them, they feel your absence deeper. Now let's talk about the fourth attitude. Attitude 4. Stop explaining yourself. Over-explaining kills respect. When you constantly justify your actions, your decisions, your boundaries, you lower your perceived value. Why? Because people sense uncertainty. Confident people don't over-explain. They decide. They say no without long speeches. They set boundaries without guilt. They walk away without drama. And that calm certainty creates authority. But here's what most people don't realize. The more you explain yourself, the less powerful you appear. Because power is quiet, power is clear, power is decisive. Epictetus taught that if something is right, you don't need endless justification. You simply act. This is where everything changes. You stop trying to make everyone understand you. You start understanding yourself. You say what you mean what you say, and you move forward. No long emotional paragraphs, no defensive speeches, just clarity. And clarity creates respect, because people trust those who trust themselves. Now the fifth attitude, and this one shifts everything. Attitude 5. Master the art of walking away. The ability to walk away is the ultimate power. Not threatening to leave, not dramatic exits, calm, controlled, final distance. When you can walk away from disrespect without emotional chaos, people feel it, because most people can't do that. They argue, they beg, they try to fix everything. But someone who can walk away calmly feels rare, and rarity creates value. Here's what most people don't realize. People only understand your value when they feel your absence. Not when you're always there, not when you're always giving, not when you're always understanding. Only when they realize they can actually lose you. That realization creates regret, because suddenly your presence isn't guaranteed. Marcus Aurelius believed dignity comes from self-control. Walking away calmly is the highest form of self-control. No anger, no revenge, no emotional chaos, just distance. And distance exposes everything. Who values you, who doesn't, who tries to return, who lets you go. But once you master walking away, you stop fearing loss. And when you stop fearing loss, you become powerful. Because no one can control someone who isn't afraid to leave. And this is where everything changes completely. Because the next 4 attitudes don't just make people notice you, they make people who didn't value you feel real regret. Now here's where it becomes dangerous. Because the next attitudes don't just change how people see you, they change how they feel about losing you. Not forced regret, real regret. The kind that makes people replay memories in their mind, the kind that makes them check your profile silently, the kind that makes them wonder if they made a mistake. But here's what most people don't realize. People only feel regret when they sense they lost something rare. So if you want real power, you don't chase validation, you become rare. Let's go deeper. Attitude 6. Become selectively silent, not cold, not rude. Selective. You don't respond to everything. You don't engage in every conversation. You don't explain every decision. You choose when to speak and when not to. And that selective silence creates mystery. Think about it. When you were always expressive, people understood you easily. When you always replied fast, people felt secure about your presence. When you always shared everything, people never had to wonder about you. But the moment you become selective, something shifts. They start wondering, thinking, paying attention. Because mystery attracts attention. Epictetus believed that silence and restraint create inner strength, and inner strength creates presence. When you speak less but with clarity, people listen more. When you share less but with purpose, people value your words. When your presence isn't constant, your absence becomes noticeable. This is where everything changes. You stop trying to be heard. You start speaking only when necessary. And suddenly, people listen differently. Attitude 7. Emotional self-control. Nothing makes someone regret losing you more than seeing you emotionally stable without them. Not pretending, not acting strong, actually calm. Most people expect emotional reactions. They expect anger, sadness, desperation, jealousy. When they don't get that, it unsettles them. They think, why are they so calm? Did they move on already? Did I lose importance? And that curiosity creates emotional tension. Seneca taught that the person who controls their emotions controls their life. Emotional reactions give others power. Emotional control takes that power back. You don't react instantly. You don't show everything. You don't let temporary feelings control permanent decisions. And that stability creates respect. Because calm people feel strong, predictable, grounded. But here's what most people don't realize. When someone sees you emotionally unaffected by their absence, they start feeling yours. Not immediately, gradually. They remember your presence, your energy, your consistency, and they compare it to what they have now. That comparison creates regret. Attitude 8. Build a life that doesn't revolve around them. This one changes everything. When your life revolves around someone, you lose power. Your mood depends on them. Your schedule depends on them. Your peace depends on them. They feel that dependence, and dependence lowers perceived value. But when your life becomes focused, purpose-driven, something shifts. You're busy improving yourself, busy building, busy growing. Not to impress them, to evolve yourself. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to focus on his purpose, not external validation, because purpose creates independence, and independence creates attraction. When people see you living well without them, they start questioning their place in your life. When they see you progressing, they wonder if they underestimated you. When they see you happy, they feel the difference. This is where everything changes. You stop building your life around people. You start building people around your life. And suddenly, those who didn't value you start realizing they lost access to someone rare, not because you told them, because they see it. Attitude 9. Absolute self-respect. This is the final level, because everything comes down to this: self-respect. When you truly respect yourself, your behavior changes. You stop tolerating nonsense. You stop chasing validation. You stop accepting half-effort. You move differently, speak differently, decide differently, and people feel it instantly. Self-respect creates invisible authority. You don't need to demand respect. Your presence commands it. Marcus Aurelius believed dignity comes from living by your standards, not others' opinions. When your standards rise, everything shifts. You choose carefully. You tolerate less. You walk away sooner. Not out of ego, out of clarity. And here's what most people don't realize. When someone loses a person with strong self-respect, they feel it deeply. Because self-respecting people are rare. They don't beg, they don't chase, they don't stay where they're not valued. They leave quietly and grow silently. And that combination creates unforgettable impact. This is where everything comes together. You don't make people regret losing you by trying to make them regret it. You do it by becoming someone whose absence creates a void, through detachment, through growth, through discipline, through self-respect. Not revenge, not games, real evolution. Because when you truly evolve, people who didn't value you start seeing you differently. Not because you changed for them, because you changed for yourself. And that's real power. Let this sink in. You don't need everyone to value you. You only need to value yourself. Because once your self-respect becomes strong, you stop needing validation. You stop fearing loss. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop staying where you're not appreciated. You become calm, focused, emotionally controlled, and that energy is impossible to ignore. If this shifted your mindset, subscribe to this channel for more powerful Stoic mindset videos that sharpen your mind and strengthen your emotional control. And watch the next video now, because once you master these attitudes, people who didn't value you won't just notice, they'll feel the loss.